All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Selena Dorme. I am the engagement coordinator with the First Nations Public Service Secretariat. I'm also from the Heiltsuk Nation here in North Vancouver, and I'd like to also recognize our neighboring nations also on this unceded territory of the Musqueam and Squamish peoples. Thank you so much again for joining another Webinar Wednesday. For this webinar, we have CRA on the line as well as Heiltsuk First Nation community to answer some questions, those burning questions you have for CRA. The CRA actually came up in our last webinar, so we were really happy to get them on board for this one. I also want to introduce Bronwyn Geddes, who is with the First Nations Public Service Secretariat. She's going to be in the background kind of answering any questions or responding to anybody in the chat if you have any particular questions for us. But as I mentioned before, most of the questions will be answered live, so please use that Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. On the video, who you can see is Mary Leslie. She's a financial consultant with the Heiltsuk Nation. So thank you so much for joining us. And on the phone, we have two representatives from CRA. We have Karen Martin, who's the Regional Outreach Programs Officer for CRA, and Saverio Desantis. He's the Pacific Region Outreach Officer with CRA. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Mary, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of give your short presentation, and then we'll hand it over to CRA, who has a PowerPoint presentation. All right, so Mary, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thank you. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe during this crazy times right now. Yeah, I work with the Heiltsuk Nation. I've worked for about 15 years. On and off doing employment programs, helping people to access various benefits, and also setting up financial systems for nonprofit and various societies on reserve. I came into working or conversing more with CRA and Service Canada shortly before the long break, the Easter break, due to accelerating questions from membership regarding benefits. It's especially hit hard because we had a canceled SOK fishery that affected not only upcoming revenue, but also ongoing seasonal benefits. CRA and Service Canada were scheduled to come right as our travel lockdown occurred and the pandemic started. So with a few conference calls and setup, we were able to basically offer virtual sessions. So instead of them being there, we had a set time where membership could contact me. I could sort of differentiate whether or not it was a CRA issue or a Service Canada issue, get them set up either by callbacks or direct lines to either one, and it's been successful. You know, the challenges have been basically information changing, and that's challenges I think on all parties regarding especially the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. And I can go into more of that later, but overall I have to say it's been a good success, and we're very, very appreciative of being able to get the support. Even if they can't speak directly to our membership, they're able to answer my questions so that I can get it back. We have a closed Facebook page for our membership to provide more information. We were a little concerned about it getting spread across too publicly, so that information would kind of get bogged down and we wouldn't be able to answer somebody's questions that was not in our geographical region. So I've spoken to Karen and Saverio on a very recent, very regular basis, and I have to say they both been fantastic to work with. So very thankful to them.
Thanks so much, Mary, for your comments. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Karen and Saverio, and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully I do this correctly.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Karen Martin. I work for Canada Revenue Agency, and I've worked for the agency for about 30 years at the end of this May. So I just want to give you a bit of a background before I do the PowerPoint deck on what outreach means at Canada Revenue Agency and what my team can do for your community. So we actually have visited 180 of the 198 First Nations in BC, give or take a few, because I know sometimes, you know, the names or the communities have changed with self-governing and things like that. So what we do is we reach out to vulnerable people. Okay, so what we mean by that is we want to make sure that all vulnerable Canadians receive the benefits and credits from the government that they're entitled to. So we support people who are housing insecure. So we do a lot of work on the downtown east side. So you could have urban Aboriginals who live on the downtown east side who we deal with in clinics there, or help them get supports to file their return, information slips. Lots of information is provided with the different groups that work on the downtown east side. We work with individuals with disabilities. We work with people that have modest to lower income. So what we mean by that is people who have income lower than approximately $40,000 for a single person. We also work with elders, and we work with youth. Okay, so that's who we deem to be the most vulnerable Canadians. So how can we help your community? So we can do in-person services. We can do where we're in your community. So say, for example, we've been to Clemtu, and when we go to Katafu First Nation, we set up it's almost like an information counter. So your community residents can come in and meet with the officer or myself and get information on how they can get their Canada Child benefit, their goods and services tax credit, now with the CRB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So we're able to do that in your actual community. And then what we do, hang on for 1 second, okay, sorry. What we can do is we can actually attend a health and wellness fair that's set up for elders, or we can do presentations. So the information materials, we can send them out to you electronically, or we can send them out to you by mail when we're out of the COVID-19 crisis situation, just to make sure that your First Nation employees are informed of the different resources that we have. And then we have the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. So I'm going to do a really quick PowerPoint presentation just on the different services that we have and the different credits and benefits we can help with. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program at the end of that. So Selena, if you can pull up the PowerPoint deck.
Hi,
so slide
sorry,
one.
I was muted. Yes, it's up, and I hope that everybody can see it. Yeah, I got a confirmation that we can see it. So we're on the first slide.
Perfect. Okay, so what's really important to us in outreach, especially during this COVID-19 crisis, is to make sure that people are still continuing to receive their credits and benefits from CRA. So let's shift to slide 2.
Okay.
So what's really important is that your community residents know if they don't do their taxes, they could be missing out on benefits and credits. So it's the key to getting the benefits and credits such as the goods and services tax, the Canada Child benefit, and any related payments from provincial or territorial programs. So to receive the Canada Child benefit, they have to apply separately, and I'm going to talk about that specifically on a different slide. So the CRA uses information from people's tax returns to calculate benefit and credit payments. So to get the payments, you and your spouse or common law partner have to do your taxes every year, even if you didn't have income in the year or your income was tax exempt. Still important to keep up with filing to make sure we have that information so we can send them out. And the other one that's really big for seniors and elders is the guaranteed income supplement. So someone will not receive the guaranteed income supplement if they don't continue to file a tax return or if they don't file a tax return. So I have experience from being in one community where I met a 77-year-old who had never filed a tax return. And so that essentially is missing out on the guaranteed income supplement for that person every year. So we've got them up to date with filing so that moving forward, they would get the guaranteed income supplement. Slide 3. Yep. So slide 3 is giving you a quick snapshot, and everyone can have this PowerPoint deck after this session. And I'm also going to give you contact information to get a hold of Saverio or myself if you have any further questions. So benefits and credits. So talk about the Canada Child benefit. The disability tax credit. So disability tax credit is an interesting credit in the sense that if someone is not taxable, then it's not really helping them on their tax return, but what it does is it's a gateway to other programs. So say, for example, I live in a community, I have a child that has a disability, I should apply for the disability tax credit for that child so that that child is entitled to the next credit, which is the child disability benefit. Okay, so we're actually seeing this being missed in a lot of communities. So if anyone wants a separate presentation, we can do a webinar-based presentation on disability tax credit, talk about the child disability benefit. Please let me know, and we're more than willing to do that. Goods and services tax, a lot of people know what that is because it's been out there for years. The one credit that we find is being missed out on by people is the Canada Workers Benefit. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later too. This is only a 10 PowerPoint slide deck, so I'm covering a lot of information at a high level. But what I really want you to remember is if you have any questions, please write them down. If we can't answer them today, we will follow up with you directly to do that. And then there's also other related benefit and credit payments from provincial or territorial programs that are sent out. So people have to file their tax return. Slide 4, please.
Ready?
So COVID-19 measures. So we want to make sure that during the COVID-19 situation, we're aware of how stressful that it is for people, that we try to make it as easy as possible for people when they're applying for the CRB. So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit or the CEWS. So that's the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. And so we introduced the CRB. Okay, so a lot of people have applied for that. So we're actually answering quite a few questions now on the CRB. So when Mary talked about the virtual services session in their community, one of the things that's being addressed are questions that are now coming up about the CRB. So if you have specific questions to that, we may be able to answer them on this call, and if not, Saverio or I will get back to you and give you a response. There's also a special one-time goods and services tax credit payment, so that's automatic. If someone has filed their tax return, they're getting the GST, they're going to get extra money for GST. There's an increased amount to the Canada Child Benefit. So we're getting questions from people saying, why did I get more Canada Child Benefit? And it's because of the COVID-19 measures that we have in place. We've extended the filing and payment due date for the 2019 tax season to make it easier for people to either file their tax return by June 1st or to make a payment if they have a balance outstanding with us. We've also reduced the minimum withdrawals for registered retirement income funds. And that's another area that we get questions on. So that's another one that's probably more one-on-one or specific, so you might want to contact us directly. We've also introduced a 75% wage subsidy to eligible employers for up to 12 weeks. We've enhanced the Reaching Home initiative, and we've also provided additional support for women's shelters and sexual assault centers. So in outreach, we actually partner with transition houses, women's shelters, men's homeless shelters all over BC. So this is an additional support for the women's shelters and sexual assault centers, but just to let you know, we do actually do a lot of work in that area just to make sure that people who are, victimized or traumatized can get the additional support they need to get up to date with filing and get the credits and benefits, especially when they need them the most. And we've also introduced the new Indigenous Community Support Fund. So on that screen, there's a link. Canada.ca CRA-coronavirus, and there's a lot more information on that page. And our website is being updated on a daily basis, so it's really important for someone who works in a First Nation that works with community residents to stay informed. Check out our website daily or send one of us a question if you have a specific question. Slide 5, please.
Ready?
Okay, so if someone has lost income because of COVID-19, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit will provide you with temporary income support. So what the CRB, so CERB, supports individuals who have stopped working because there is no longer a demand for their services, or who can't work because they're sick, or have to stay home to take care of their children. So this includes people who are eligible for employment insurance, as well as contract workers and self-employed Canadians who would generally not be eligible for EI. So key, who is eligible? So you can apply for the CRB if you meet all of the following conditions. So you have lost your income for at least 14 consecutive days in the 4-week period you're applying for. You are a resident of Canada. You are 15 years of age or older. You have stopped working but not voluntarily. And you earned $5,000 in the last 12 months or in 2019 through employment or self-employment income or through federal or provincial benefits for maternity or parental leave. There's tons of questions about CRB. Every possible scenario has definitely not been answered, and I know our headquarters is trying to put together a specific document specifically for First Nations and CRB questions. We don't have that out yet, but as soon as that's out, I can share that with the First Nation Public Service Secretariat, who can then share it with whoever attended this conference call. In outreach, we're trying to get the messaging out as soon as possible about the different COVID-19 measures, but we just, we don't have everybody's email address, so we're trying to do that as best possible. Slide 6, please.
Ready.
So additional eligibility requirements, and you stopped or will stop working due to COVID-19, and you're applying for the first time. So for at least 14 days in a row during the 4-week payment period, you do not expect to receive more than $1,000 before taxes from employment and self-employment income, or you are reapplying for another period. You do not expect your situation to change during this 4-week period, and you do not expect to receive more than $1,000 before taxes from employment and self-employment income, or you received regular EI benefits for at least 1 week since December 29th, 2019. You are no longer eligible for EI benefits. So what's really important with the CRB is if you started the process with employment insurance, then that's how you're going to continue the process. And I know it's quite confusing, but that would mean that you would do that under the Service Canada umbrella. If you've applied for CRB and have started receiving it through Canada Revenue Agency, so through my account or through the phone line, then you would ask the questions of Canada Revenue Agency. So, and we can clarify that on the one-off questions. I know it's confusing, and I know there's lots of information out there right now, so I really want to emphasize that we're there to support you with those questions. Slide 7.
Ready.
So applying for the CRB. So you can apply for the CRB starting on April 6th. People could have started applying. So only an individual or a public trustee can apply, so a representative cannot make the application on someone else's behalf. There's no documentation required for the application. If you are later deemed ineligible, you're going to be expected to repay the benefit. So I know in the beginning, some people were saying, you know what, just everybody apply for it, whether you're eligible or not, and, just let CRA deal with it or Service Canada deal with it. So what we're finding now is some people have applied for it and they're not eligible, so they are going to have to pay it back. So they're going to have to repay the benefit. There's not going to be any interest or penalties applied on the overpayments because we know that there was misinformation out there in the beginning, just telling everyone, the government was not telling people, but other people were saying just apply. So to apply, someone must meet the eligibility requirements. If anyone has any questions about whether they meet the eligibility requirements or not, give us a call and we can help them with that. Ensure that CRA has your correct address and or direct deposit information. So really important, if you do want to do a virtual service session like the one that we did with Heiltsuk, the community residents, when they contact us, can correct their address with us too if they've had an address change. And then we can walk them through the steps of how they need to update their direct deposit information. So people need to apply for each 4-week period in which you're eligible using either my account or by calling the CRA's automated toll-free line. So that's 1-800-959-2019 or through Service Canada's Apple Web. So if someone cannot apply through my account or an automated phone service, you'll be asked to apply by phone. Okay, so if they apply online or by phone at the 2 numbers that are listed, we want to give the best service possible to everyone. So to help manage this, we had set up specific days in the week. And then if you were born in the month of January, February, or March, apply on Mondays. April, May, June, apply on Tuesdays. So what you'll appreciate with this is we basically got up and running a credit in 3 or 4 days, which, dealing with the government, we don't do stuff that fast. So, which is why we asked people to stagger the application dates for this, just to make sure that it wasn't bogging down our system to the point that people were getting error messages. Really important for people to remember that to continue receiving the CRB, they need to apply and confirm eligibility every 4 weeks if the situation continues. Slide 8, please.
Ready.
So if someone is registered for My Account, they can apply very easily through My Account. If they're not registered through My Account, they can actually go to our website and do the registration process. They need to have their social insurance number, their date of birth, their current postal code, and the amount from this year or last year's tax return. And if someone needs to be walked through the steps of registering for My Account, please have them contact Saverio or I, and we will be able to help people with the process for that. And if you're interested in a session for your First Nation employees where we help them with the registration for My Account so that they can help people in your community, we're willing to do that as well. Okay, so My Account is probably the easiest and quickest way because our phone lines are busier, but this outlines the instructions on how someone will go through that process. Slide 9, please.
Ready.
So this is probably one of the most important slides in this PowerPoint deck because it gives you our web addresses and phone numbers. So it gives you the direct link, and these are live clickable links when you get the deck. So for COVID-19 information, child and family benefits, disability tax credit, the Canada Workers Benefit. I didn't go into detail on that, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to be able to cover that today. But if anyone's interested in a session on Canada Workers Benefit, we can do that. The Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of that. It's where we partner up with the First Nation and a volunteer in your community who does tax returns on behalf of other members in the community who don't necessarily have the means or the know-how of how to file their own tax return. Saverio is fantastic. He has worked with people in communities, Heiltsuk included, where someone has been on Simple Tax, and that's a certified free software program out there, and has bounced questions off him. So, you know, we're able to refer people to CVITP to see if there's a volunteer in the area. But if not, during this COVID-19 crisis time period, we're, you know, willing to help people as much as we can to try and get them through filing a basic tax return. CVITP volunteer, so that's if someone is interested in volunteering, and if you have someone in your community who has a bit of a knack with numbers and wants to be able to give back to the community, they can go through this link and register to become a volunteer. My Account, that's how someone would register for My Account. We have a lot of electronic services, so digital services are available for people, and then the bottom 4 numbers are telephone numbers that are listed for people to call. Okay, so slide 10.
Ready.
So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview. So what we did is with Heiltsuk First Nation, so it was actually James Moxon, Director for Indigenous Services Canada, reached out and asked if we'd be interested in partnering for this service that we've provided to Heiltsuk. And the feedback has been fantastic. It's gone so smoothly. Mary has been fantastic as she's like the air traffic controller for the community. So questions come into Mary, and Mary's like, okay, that's Service Canada, that's CRA. She figures out, you know, which wheelhouse to send it to. Saverio and Service Canada folks did a train the trainer session for Mary, got her up and running so that, you know, she knew to differentiate which line to direct them to. And then we set up 4-hour sessions, and it's kind of on a need basis. So, you know, we have another First Nation that we're working with now to support, but it's basically, you know, people have to request it, and they basically, if there's a need out there, we're willing to support people in that. So that's all I have for today. Saverio is available on the line just for when the questions come up for Heiltsuk, if there's any ones for that. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. Really appreciate it. A lot of great information there. We actually have about 12 questions already in the queue, and we have about 15 minutes or so to answer those. So I'm just going to go ahead and shoot them off to you. The first question is, I would appreciate a separate webinar on the child benefits and disability tax information. That's from Lloyd McDame. So we can definitely look into doing that too as well, or you can reach out to CRA individually to get that done. Is the CRB taxable? That's the next question.
The CERB is a taxable benefit. It's Saverio, by the way, sorry. But if you're tax exempt and your income has always been tax exempt, then also the CRB would also be tax exempt for those individuals that are living on reserve, working on reserve, and employed on reserve. So just like right now, for instance, if you're paying into your EI and you've been tax exempt, when you get your EI slip at the end of the year, it'll show that it's in box 18, which meaning it's an exempt EI benefit. The CRB will be the same in that manner. But if you've been taxed in previous years, then the CRB will also be taxed.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is, we've heard from a member that the COVID benefit was kept by the government for outstanding debt with the government. Is there any way to appeal this?
It's Karen. That's actually the very first time that I've heard that, and I'd actually be really surprised that it was held, because this was an emergency response benefit to get out to people quickly so that they could deal with just the high priority, different financial needs that they have during this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up a little package for you to send to anyone who's attended today's webinar. And please, whoever sent that question to you, please contact me directly. I manage the outreach program for BC. I will look into that for you specifically and get a response.
Great, thank you so much. For the service that you mentioned for First Nations, they're wondering if there are people who do the same service in Victoria too as well.
Yeah, so I manage the outreach program for all of BC. So yes, we would cover Vancouver Island as well. So our reach actually extends, so Kootenays, Dease Lake, Fort St. John. We have officers up in Whitehorse in the Yukon who cover all the First Nations up there. And I personally have covered most of Vancouver Island, and so has Saverio. So Kingham Inlet, Kitasoo First Nation. Yeah, we will cover anywhere that's in BC.
Great, thank you. Is the CCB payment a one-time payment only?
Yes, so this is Saverio. So yes, this is a one-time payment only for now. Things may change, we're not sure, but as it's been rolled out so far, it is a one-time payment that's been that's going to be coming out.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is actually for Mary. Mary, could you please repeat what you mentioned about fisheries and the COVID-19 benefits? Unfortunately, they missed it in the beginning. Oh, you're muted. 1 second.
Sorry. Yeah, basically, I just explained the situation for us here, and that the fact that our spawn-on kelp fishery occurs this time of year, just a while back, and the commercial side of it was halted due to the pandemic, and so it was quite a concern about what was going to happen in the long term. Usually in the summertime is when the product is sold, and so income comes, and then for those who want to and are eligible, they can receive EI benefits usually starting in the fall. And so there was concern at first whether or not they were going to be eligible for the CERB, and they are now. And I think Karen probably can address that a little bit better than I could, because it is a little different than CRA from what I understand.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the big things is, Karen, with the Heiltsuk and the fishery and what's happening there is, what I want is people to contact me directly if they have different scenarios. So it's definitely not a cookie cutter response to these virtual service sessions or how we're handling the CRB inquiries, because everything is so unique and so different depending on the question that's coming in. So for that, if someone could send it directly to me or through the First Nation Public Service Secretariat to me, that would be fantastic, and I'll follow up with them.
Great, thanks so much. The next question is, can you provide information about an employee's eligibility for the CERB due to no full-time hours available, and the employee's ability to work hours that allow them to earn up to $1,000 per month while in receipt of CERB? Has this now been addressed in an updated legislation?
I'm going to hand that one over to Saverio. Sorry about that, Saverio. Do you have any info on that, or do you want us to receive it, be sent in by email?
Yeah, no. So what was it again? So if somebody's received $1,000 of income, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question one more time for me?
Yes. So can you provide information about an employee's eligibility for CERB due to no full-time hours available, and the employee's ability to work hours that allow them to earn up to $1,000 per month while in receipt of CERB?
Yeah, so if I understand this correctly, so basically they did change it in a sense that if an employee was working and their income is only $1,000 or less, and they've been affected, their employment has been affected, their hours have been affected due to COVID. In some situations, for instance, people that have maybe 2 jobs, maybe they've been able to retain 1 job, and then the second employer, they may have been affected by the second employer. They didn't want those individuals to be impacted in a sense where they would be not receiving the CERB benefit, because they would still be affected even though they are working the 1 job. So what they did was they limited it to $1,000. So if they're earning $1,000 or less and they've still been affected, and if their hours have been affected, then they would be eligible for the CERB benefit. If they're over the $1,000 threshold, then in that situation, then they would not be eligible for the CERB benefit. Does that answer that question?
I hope so. Please, Kathy, if you want CRA to follow up with you individually, we can definitely do that. We're happy to share all these questions with CRA for them to clarify a little bit more, and or if we don't get a chance to answer all these questions, they're going to receive a report from this webinar. So not to worry. So if you think that your question wasn't answered, you can send us a note and we can make sure to let CRA know. Question on that Simply Tax program. Can the program process as many returns within it, unlike Studio Tax, which is up to only 20 returns?
Yeah, this is Karen, and Saverio can chime in after I've responded. Yes, so Simple Tax is unlimited. So in outreach, so on our website, you can actually see tax software programs that are certified by CRA. So I always recommend that people check our website before they just kind of go rogue and use a tax software program. And so the ones that we have knowledge of and that we both either use or we talk to people about because they're quite straightforward and easy are Simple Tax and Studio Tax. So Saverio, there isn't a requirement. There's not a set number for Simple Tax. No. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. As far as I know, I've used it quite a bit, and I know with Studio Tax, you're correct. I think there's a limit of 20. With Simple Tax, I haven't seen that limit put in. I know that we've done more than that before. So, no, I don't think there's a limit for Studio Tax.
Great. Thank you all so much. The next question is, oh, it's moving away from me. So if a person has applied and received CERB, CRA is now reviewing all of those applications, and if a person is not eligible, will no longer receive CERB?
Saverio?
So, yeah, if someone is no longer eligible to receive the CERB benefit, when they go in to apply, because they need to apply for every cycle, every 4-week cycle as they become available. So when they apply for it, the system will know if they're not eligible or not, especially if they're, say, for instance, receiving EI benefits, or if they have earned income over $1,000, it'll be up to that individual to also know that they would not be eligible. Potentially, if they were to receive income over $1,000 during that cycle, that payment cycle, they would be able to still apply for the benefit because we wouldn't know that they've earned that income. But then come tax time, when the system catches up and a T4 has been issued and they realize that maybe they have received money during that period, at that point they might be asked to return that payment back. So it would be mainly up to the individuals just to know what type of income that they're earning and to make sure that they're staying within those limits so that they don't receive a payment that they wouldn't be entitled to.
Great, thank you so much. Does receiving on-reserve income assistance affect your eligibility for CERB?
This is Saverio again. as long as you meet the eligibility factors. So the main parts of the eligibility factors is that you stopped work due to COVID. So if they were working and their income in 2019 was $5,000 or more, and that was before tax income, then they would be eligible, regardless of other income that they have coming in.
Great, thanks so much. Another question for Mary. I would like to learn more about the Heiltsuk Nation CRA program. Is there a framework available to view online? Oh, let's unmute you, sorry.
Sorry again. No, we don't really have anything available. It's really been very grassroots. You know, we're so small here that a lot of it's just been calling my personal cell phone and talking through things. And other than just a private Facebook page and a few bulletins that have gone door to door, and not anything, unless Karen can think of anything. We don't really have anything.
Yeah, no, we don't have a framework because, you know, like I said earlier with the other responses, it's not a cookie cutter approach. So what we want to do is we want to work with the First Nations. So we've actually had another couple of First Nations contact us and say that they're interested in, you know, the same sort of virtual session set up for them for the support. So we would work with the First Nation, and then, you know, it depends. Are you on social media? Would you be able to send the fan outs, you know, through Facebook, or, you know, is there a central place in the community where you could post notifications about it? Could someone get on a phone and call? So yeah, we're willing to work, you know, with any individual First Nation that's interested in this, and, you know, appreciate the fact that we have 5 outreach officers for BC and myself. But at the end of the day, it's just helpful to have someone that you can reach out to if a question comes up that you can't point someone in the direction to. So we're definitely willing to work with everybody and just see how we can make this work. It's not a dedicated phone line set up, so this is not something. It's working with the officers and myself individually, you know, just to get the responses out to your community residents as quickly as possible. But we don't have a framework in place. We didn't have time to develop that for sure.
Great, thank you so much. Apparently, some First Nations have received a forward from Indigenous Services Canada that CERB is a taxable benefit even for those on reserve. Not sure if you're aware of whatever that was sent out just this morning, or if we can speak to it, but that's the next question.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of what was sent out this morning, but I believe James Moxon is on the line. I'm not sure if he's a panelist, but we would look into that question and get back to you on that one. I don't have an answer off the top of my head on that one for sure.
Yes, we can definitely follow up. The next question is, what if you have not filed taxes for a few years? Are you still able to apply for CERB, and will the government then go after you for outstanding taxes if they do apply?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
If you have not filed taxes for a few years, are you still able to apply for CERB? And if you do, and you have outstanding taxes from not filing for several years, will the government keep the CERB funds that were supposed to be allocated to you?
Saverio, do you have a response for this one, or okay?
Yeah, no, I do. So where people are being impacted is, say they haven't filed a tax return for 10 years. What happens is their social insurance number goes dormant because it hasn't been used, or has been nothing filed. In those situations, they need to file a return to basically get their social insurance and get, you know, them set up into our system. So for individuals that have been filed for like a lengthy time like that, where their sins have gone dormant, then what would happen is when they would go apply for the CERB benefit, it would impede them from applying from it because their social insurance number has gone dormant. Anybody other than that their sin has not gone dormant, they maybe haven't filed for maybe 2 or 3 years, they would still be eligible to file. Now, having said that, going forward, if they've received the CERB benefit, they may be asked to file later down the road because the systems, there's going to be some checkpoints put in place just to make sure that the people that did receive it, were eligible to receive it and should have received it. So they may be asked in the future, to file those returns just to confirm their income. But other than that, that would be about it. It shouldn't affect them from filing it other than that. But where they're really being affected also is by not filing for those years is they're not receiving that enhanced GST payment, or if they have children, that enhanced Canada Child Benefit as well. So that's where they're going to get impacted because we pay back benefits up to 10 years. So for instance, for somebody that hasn't filed a return for 10 years, if you're tax exempt or you have little income, most people are getting large refunds back. And at this time, that kind of money could be really helpful in getting a nice lump sum back like that of GST for the last 10 years, or maybe Canada Child Benefit as well for several years if you've had children in your care. And that could really help. And as long as also with the Canada Workers Benefit, anybody whose income is between, say, the threshold of about $2,500 to $22,000 can earn like an extra $2,000 extra on their tax return under the Canada Workers Benefit, because it helps basically give you back a kickback on your tax return because you've been in a modest income bracket. All those things add up, and it could be several hundreds or thousands of dollars to those individuals.
Yeah, and I want to follow up on what Saverio said with that. It's Karen, just about the fear of non-filing. So what we find is there's a lot of people, once you get into a non-filing your tax return cycle, it becomes fear-based, that people they think they owe us money. And I can only speak from my experience of being involved in outreach, and I know Saverio would echo the same response, is for the most part, the people who I'm seeing, like at friendship centers and Blade Runner groups and different things like that, or, younger males, like in the age demographic of 20 to 30, that come and see me and say, I think I owe you guys money. I don't want to file my tax return. For the most part, I could honestly say probably 80 to 95% of them don't owe us money. We actually owe them money. And so I know what non-filing does to people. I know it creates fear in their mind, but at the end of the day, it's still worth them getting someone to go through the returns with them and see if they're getting money back. There's a pretty good chance if someone owes us money from being in a non-filing status that we would have reached out to them. So yeah, I want to kind of demystify and remove the stigma from filing, because I have a lot of elders tell me that too, like, I'm fearful that I owe you money. And then at the end of the day, they get 10 years of GST back. They start, getting the guaranteed income supplement moving forward. So if someone has concerns about that, have them reach out to us, because we can sort of walk them through that process.
Great. Thank you so much. We only have time for one more question. How often should you apply for CRB? And if you happen to apply at the wrong time, there was a comment here that they had called the 1-800 number and said that they already applied, and they were basically turned away. So what's the protocol for, is there just a time frame window, like every 4 weeks from the date that it started on that you actually can get in and talk to somebody to apply? And how often should that be?
Saverio, do you have the dates for that, or is that something we should get by email and follow up with it by email?
Yeah, basically, it's in 4-week cycles, and they can't apply for the benefit before the first cycle expires. They have to kind of be it's the day after one of the cycles ends. So, for instance, for payment periods, the first cycle was on March the 15th, and it went to April the 11th. So if they're applying now for the second period, which would be April 12th to May the 9th, they would need to apply for it the week of the beginning of April the 12th. So that way they would be in that 4-week cycle. So that's how that would work, so that they can to stay on top of getting their payments. Once they have if they have direct deposit set up and they're either applying through the telephone, their payments, most people are getting their payments within 3 and 4 days maximum. And the only time that they're going to have a difficulty applying on the telephone is if, for instance, they've been with employment insurance, they've received EI benefits, and our system notices that they are with Service Canada and receiving EI benefits through that route, then in order to avoid people getting duplicate payments and then having the burden of having to try to return a payment, we will not accept those applications, and then we're bouncing them back to the Service Canada side so that they can go through Service Canada for their CURB applications.
Great, thank you so much. We're just about at the end of our time. I would like to launch a poll just to do a quick survey, if that's okay with everybody, before you sign off. And I also want to share a document that has been released by the First Nations Public Service Secretariat. It's a one-pager with a bunch of information on personal income tax returns for BC First Nations. So I'm going to launch the poll right now. So please take a couple seconds to fill that out. It would be really great in helping us plan for future webinars to really just discuss the topics that you're interested in. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and show you what this one pager looks like. The link is available, was just posted in the group chat. So it's a ton of information all packed into a one pager to hopefully help answer you have on filing your tax returns. Of course, you can always reach out to our speakers today from CRA. Yes, their contact information can be shared with all of you, and they will be following up on all the questions that we didn't get a chance to answer today. They will be following up individually. So another great resource is going to be available on our website, on our social media. And of course, CRA has a ton of other resources too for you as well. So I just wanted to share that with you and let you know that that's available. So thank you for completing the poll. See, we have about 30 responses there. As always, this webinar has been recorded. It is going to be uploaded to our new YouTube channel. And please, you could also always just check out our website. We have the COVID-19 page where we have a lot of other information funneling from other organizations such as ISC, the Health Authority, the Leadership Council, and our Facebook page too as well. We have a Facebook group called the First Nation Administrators Network. All the members of that page are people who work at a First Nation, so it's really just another platform for information sharing on a variety of topics, although most of the conversation seems to be COVID related as of lately. I want to give a big thank you to our CRA representatives, Karen and Saverio. Thank you so much for joining us and answering these questions. Mary Leslie from Heiltsuk Nation, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So thank you so much for that. It helps us plan for future offerings. We are doing these weekly. We actually have another one this Friday with the Schools Association and FNPSS this Friday morning at 11 a.m. I believe, but more information is available on our website for those coming up. So that's all I have for today. And that's about it. So thank you all so much. Stay healthy and safe out there and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.